What's up, y'all? It's Dominique, aka that therapist. Hold on, guys, because I was bumping my gums on TikTok and had got thrown off guard. All right, for those of you that don't know me, okay, I'm the lead clinician and CEO for a group practice known as Yellow Bird Counseling, okay? I have to be very careful about the name so y'all can hear it correctly. Yellow Bird Counseling. What is that? What is a yellow bird? What does that mean? Why are you on my timeline? Well, our normal day-to-day activities include providing individual, couples, family, group, therapy, and or counseling, okay, in the states of Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, New Jersey, and Idaho. So if you live in any of those states, we can service you. Yes, we do offer telehealth. All right, we get that question a lot, and we have several different therapists on our staff, so there is no wait list, and you will be able to get in with us very soon. All right, so that's what we do on our normal day-to-day woo-to-woo, you know what I'm saying? But what do we do here on social media? Well, our whole mission overall, more specifically on social media, is to educate the general population on reasons that all of us, including myself, can benefit from having a therapist outside of having a mental illness. Because most of y'all be thinking, oh my God, if I go to therapy, that means something's wrong with me. I'm not crazy. And that's not what it's for. You've been living under a myth, and it has contributed to the stigma that you have for protecting and maintaining your own mental health. But y'all be out here not feeling well, okay? You know what I mean. You're not feeling good. So you need to see someone about that, whether it's one of my therapists at Yellowbird or whether it's somewhere else. You need to get the help because your mental health can go so far to where it's really, really hard to get it back. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for you. So, and you don't want that for your friends and family either. So if you could, please share this live. You could please share this live. There's several different options for you to share. Okay, you can click the share button and you can click on more options. You can copy the link and you can DM it to somebody. You can text it to somebody. You can messenger it to somebody, whatever. Or you could share it on your page or in the groups you're in, because somebody probably needs assistance with the information that we have. And if you want to join in the effort to break the stigma that surrounds mental health and wellness, you can do one small thing and share the live so that someone else can get the information and be grateful to you for helping them. All right? So, as y'all know, it is Mental Awareness Month, so we've been making you aware of your mental. So, we had some of our followers who had requested some topics. So this is one of the topics that our followers requested. And since it is Awareness Month, I'm just trying to bring awareness to as many areas of mental health as I can. And so last week, we talked about men's mental health and what depression and anxiety can look like in men, more specifically Black men, with a Black male therapist, a Black man therapist on the panel. Okay, so we did that because the men is a big need area. Okay, and then the first week, oh my God, what did I talk about? So the week before that, I don't even remember. I drew a blank. It was good too. Dang. I don't remember. But y'all can scroll back up and look because I don't remember. I really just drew a blank. Y'all know I come right out of session, right into the live. So my brain is still adjusting. But if you just scroll down the page, or if you're in the community, you scroll up a couple weeks, You'll see the link and you can be like, oh, that's what it was. Okay, then you'll know for yourself. All right. Okay, so enough of that. Let's talk tonight. Of course, I'm not doing it by myself this evening. I have one of the newly initiated Yellowbird ambassadors that is going to help us. You have not seen them since they were an intern. The last time you saw them, they was a wee little intern. And now they've flown away, and I'm still watching over them for safety. But they have graduated, and now they are on staff as a therapist, and not just a therapist, but in a lead therapist role, which is our therapist admin. Okay, so without further ado, let me bring them on so that they can reintroduce their new self to y'all. Hey, Dana!
Hi.
Tell them about yourself.
About myself.
Tell them you reinvented since they last saw you. You got a new title.
So my name is Dana, Dana Irvine, ALC. Hey. And I am a recent graduate of the UAB program, and I am here at Yellowbird, a flying bird now, as opposed to a little nest baby.
Cool. So, hey, as y'all may have seen on our ads, because a lot of you tell me that you see our ads, which is great because that means they're performing as they should. You see that Dana's areas of specialty are neurodivergence, transgender individual, and what else, Dana?
Teenagers.
You said teenagers?
Yeah.
And teenagers, yeah. So I had asked Dana if they would not mind helping co-facilitate this live, since this is part of their specialty area. So Dana's pronouns are they, them, by the way. Yeah, so Dana, first, kind of, can you tell us about what is autism? And let me get my new thing that I got.
New thing that we got. Ooh, exciting.
Look. Oh my gosh.
My dogs are being unreasonable today, so if we get any noise, that's what that is.
That's okay.
We all know we see Mr. Carter every week, so.
Yeah, Mr. Carter, he's perched on the couch like a bird. So, but I had got my new DSM 5 revised.
They're so shiny.
I know. Well, that's nerdy. Therapists are the only people that I know that be like, oh, I got a new DSM. So, yeah, tell us. I want to see in regards to this, because I haven't even cracked it open yet. I want to see in regards to this. Let me go, because this is the desk reference for a practitioner to have on their desk, and then this definitely would go like on your bookshelf, something you could pull out if you need to just lay it open.
Every use.
Hold on. Let me see, because they
I was wondering if she was excited about using the new DSM.
Yeah. You think it's under neurodevelopmental disorders?
Yeah, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. So generally when I talk about autism and ADHD because they're so similar but like so different. They're both neurodevelopmental disorders, and I have my definitions if you can't find it.
I found it for follow along. And then if there is anything that I had to, okay, here we go. Autism spectrum disorder. Got it. Tell us what you got, Dana.
Hold on. You go ahead. Evidently one of my cats wants in.
Hi, kitty. Okay, so persistent defects in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts. as manifested by all of the following, currently or by history. Okay, that's important. That's important for our adults who are being diagnosed. It's either currently presenting, probably more so in your children, and then maybe you have a history of it as an adult, but because of your upbringing, maybe your parents kind of just pushed you through it, for lack of a better term. So we've got several criteria here, okay? This is one I want y'all to know about because y'all have heard, everybody has heard about autism, okay? So this is why I chose this for an awareness topic. All right, so let's see, do you have it, okay? Listen, let's see, do you have it? Defects in social, emotional, reciprocity, ranging, for example, from abnormal social approach and failure of normal back and forth conversation. Because I got clients that come to me and be like, I'm so weird. I can't have a back and forth. Like, it's hard for them. No, you're not weird. You may have a neurodevelopmental situation going on, which is okay. We don't all function the same. To reduce sharing of, to reduce sharing of interest. Look at me. I'm having to mask. All right. Emotions or affect, to failure to intimate or respond to social interactions. Oh, I'm sorry. That's initiate, y'all. I had read it wrong. I'm like, intimate. That don't even make no sense. So basically, in short, Dana, tell us what I read.
So there's a couple of different necessary things. And so it is a pattern of persistent deficits in a couple of different areas. And so it's not just going to be like, I'm not very good at like reading people, or I'm not very good at like holding a conversation. It's going to be several different things where you have a persistent deficit in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts. So it's not just going to be like, I have trouble expressing myself at a work. It's going to be, you know, a kind of consistent thing across your life, or at home, in relationships with peers, all that, where you're not going to be able to do that very well. And then it also talks about restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior. And so that can be a couple of different things, including just like having really restricted interests, like you're not just kind of interested in a lot of normal things. Then different sensory issues, and adherence to like sameness, like you have routines that have to be followed. Wednesday is meatloaf day. We can't have spaghetti on meatloaf day. It's meatloaf day. And then, like, you know, the kind of typical things that you think about, like lining up your toys. Everything has to be in its place all the time. If everything's not perfect, then like I'm going to have a freak out. And then, so with that, it's important to note that we no longer use terms like high functioning and low functioning.
Get into it, because people is still saying it.
Yes, and it makes me a little bit bananas, but we're all learning. We're learning here together, and now you know, so you don't do it no more. So now autism is leveled on like, or classified on levels. And so it is based on how much support you need. And so generally a level 1 is called requiring support. And so you may have difficulty keeping your own schedule, or, you know, fully regulating yourself all the time. And so you might not be able to be completely independent, or you may require some kind of additional assistance, but generally pretty good with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So level 2 is going to be requiring substantial support, where you have social interactions that are limited. Like it's difficult for you to initiate conversations. You don't really have interest talking in things about that don't like really interest you. And so like if you're not talking about something I want to talk about, I'm not going to talk. Like I'm just going to sit here and stare at you. Or you might have more sensory needs. You might have more repetitive behaviors. You might be more strict on that schedule. And so, you know, it's basically you just
sensory needs, because some people, they don't realize that it's like a thing that they, you know, need to do. Oh, did it freeze? Are we frozen? I hope we're not frozen. Jeez. That would not be good. Dana, are you there, Dana? Dana.
Hello.
You're back. Okay.
I'm back.
Go ahead. Tell us about the sensory needs.
Oh, yeah. So, so different sensory needs, things might be more or less sensitive to different inputs for you. And so I was going to talk more about this later if
go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. Sure. I'm jumping the gun. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so level 2 is going to be kind of, you see those things, but it's kind of more extreme. You need more support. And then level 3 is going to be requiring very substantial support. These are the kind of area that you get into, also have significant like other issues, including intellectual disabilities or other neurodiversities like dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, all those things, possible nonverbal, great amount of distress and difficulty in self-regulating, in communicating, in taking care of self and doing those regular kind of daily function activities.
This is cool.
That's kind of where we are now.
So, yes. I thought I would. Do you happen to have the prevalence on there? Because I had found it.
I don't.
Let me give it, because y'all might be like, oh my gosh, what's the likelihood? Because that's always my question. And it shouldn't be a oh my gosh thing, okay? Because everything going on with everybody affects at least millions of everybody else's. All right. We all got something that makes us more unique. And so for this particular topic, let's see, frequencies for autism spectrum disorder across the U.S. have been reported to be between 1 and 2% of the population. So whatever that translates to, a few million, okay? But 1 and 2% of the population. With similar estimates in children and adult samples. So basically in the adult sample set and the child sample set, it was about 1%. And so I'm assuming this was maybe a few million people. I don't know. I'm just assuming. However, prevalence appears to be lower among African Americans in African Americans, the prevalency is about 1.1%, and Latinx children is about 0.8% compared to white children, which is about 1.3%, even after the effect of socioeconomic resources is taken into account. So, I mean, it's pretty much splitting hairs. Everybody's at about, 1%-ish, popularity wise, but we've only that only covers a couple different not only 1, 2, 3 ethnic backgrounds. It doesn't account for our Asian population or ethnically Jewish population, but maybe maybe they're just lumping them all together because the United States, we only have 5 races, and you're like, how? Because we have like So yeah. But anyway, go ahead. I just thought that was interesting to put out there.
Yeah. And like prevalency does tend to be increasing now as we move towards more understanding, especially in the 90s, early 2000s. It was just like young white boys who were nonverbal and like trains. Like that was the only people that were autistic. And
Mm-hmm.
so now as we learn more, as we study this more, it's kind of gotten a better understanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep. So you and Dana mentioned there has to be a multiple of those diagnostic, what we call diagnostic criteria. So you might have some of them, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you have an autism diagnosis, okay? Because we all have our unique things about us. And some of those things you may see in yourself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have an autism diagnosis.
so Sandra had asked how dyslexia and those things play into autism,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and it helps lead a little bit into my next point.
Cool.
I saw something recently that helped me. It kind of helped me understand and kind of put a different layer onto what I understand about autism. And it was talking about twice exceptionalities. Um, and so, twice exceptional is the terms that are given to maybe kids in school who are like intellectually gifted but may also have a learning disability, such as dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia. I think there might be another one, but you know,
I think there's one more, but I can't remember.
yeah.
You named all the most
Mhm. And
ones.
then, ADHD, autism, these things are also neurodevelopmental disorders. They can be considered learning difficulties or, you know, developmental disabilities, depending on how you look at it. But the concept of twice exceptionality can be explained by neuroplasticity. And this is like the most big word science in depth we're going to get. I promise. So stick with me.
It's my
But
favorite. Go ahead.
neuroplasticity is the idea that your brain grows around its deficits. And so, like, if you were to have, as opposed to before, where we kind of assumed that, or maybe it's just been like, you know, kind of watered down in a way to teach people in the same way a lot of things are, the kind of stuff you're taught in elementary schools, not the entire truth, because, it's got to be taught in a way that's understandable to elementary school kids. But
Mm-hmm.
neurons and your neurons do actually grow. There is not a, like, once it dies it's dead. I mean, once it dies it is dead. You're not going to regrow neurons, but your neurons are capable of kind of growing and pruning and making some progress. And so, like, if you were to
Like
have
the liver.
well, the liver is really, really good about it. Liver and thyroid are probably the most quick growing, but also your vessels, your like blood vessels. And so, like, if you were to have a heart attack within like an hour or so, you could grow new vessels to get blood to that area. But by that time, you've got so much dead tissue that it's like not going to do a whole lot of good, which is why you have to go to the doctor and get that stuff sorted out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Whereas your brain, it would take a couple of years to do the same thing. It's very slow growing. And so if you have like a really small stroke, you might over several years be able to regrow that connections. But anyway, that's the concept of neuroplasticity. It's just the ability of your brain to change and grow and do these things. And so if you have either a developmental disability where Mr. Carter.
Hey boy.
If you have a developmental disability where like part of your brain is just not as well developed, you may have another area of your brain that develops more. And so the example I saw was like females with autism, especially, tend to be more clumsy, which could be the cerebellum is less developed. And so if part of your brain is slightly smaller, another part of your brain is going to be slightly larger. And so you may have an increase in frontal lobe, where you may have more of that, what we see in the ability to recognize patterns or increased cognitive abilities. It may be in different areas of your brain. You might have in the occipital lobe, where you get increased vision. You're very quick to notice things, to pick up on these things. It may be in the temporal lobe, which affects your hearing. You may have perfect pitch. You may be able to play things from ear. And so, basically, if you have a deficit somewhere, it's likely that you have an exceptionality somewhere else, where your brain has, through that neuroplasticity, worked around those things and like given you some ability somewhere else. And of course, that's not for like everything. Like obviously some people are just going to be developmentally delayed, but there is a lot of that explanation between like severely, like extremely smart, very good at recognizing patterns, but like just real socially weird,
Yeah, so I have a friend who is on the spectrum, and you can give him any your any birthday and he can tell you what day of the week it was. Super cool. I was born on a Monday. He helped me find that out.
I recently learned from like having to go through and like select your date of birth on like one of those calendar things instead of just being able to type it in, that I was born on a Sunday. So yeah, that's kind of a having the ability to like keep a calendar and do that quick math and that kind of things.
Yeah.
So that's.
So you were talking about the exceptionalities of it.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, sometimes you'll have those kind of savant sort of syndrome things where it is something like that, where you just know the kind of calendar back and forth like that. You can do that kind of really, really quick math. Or people who are just really good at an instrument can just like start playing piano like they've been doing it their whole lives, but generally it's just kind of ow, that hurts, you have claws, where you have a small deficit in communication. You may have a small deficit in balance and these things, and so you have a bit of a boost somewhere else. It's not necessarily going to be kind of savant level for a lot of people, and I think that can also be a misunderstanding of a lot of people, is like every autistic person is Rain Man. So
yeah.
But yeah, generally autistic people are regular folks just like all of us. And with neuroplasticity, like you have the ability to basically work on those areas, exercise those areas where you can have conversations and practice those skills, and basically like, give a little like gym workout to those neurons and help strengthen those connections so that you become better at it.
And y'all, that's the same thing when we use a little bit off topic, but not too much. When we use affirmation regimens, we are utilizing neuroplasticity. That's why it can't be just and I feel bad, I use it. You might notice that you're that they're not working, but over time, saying it, kind of exhaustively, that's taking that is utilizing your brain's own neuroplasticity to develop new neural pathways to core beliefs and things of that nature. So there is science behind what we do, but that was a little off topic, but just giving y'all that.
Yeah, neuroplasticity and like building those pathways is a big part of all therapy because, you know, you have to be practicing these things. I tell my clients all the time, like, currently, this is your pathway, this is the way you're going, and it's not working for you. And so we need to start not taking that road as frequently, start taking what is right now a dirt road, if it's like a road at all, and start building that. And as we start traveling on that more, you know, ALDOT is going to be like, oh, I guess we should pave this road. I guess we should add more lanes to this road. Like, if we're taking this road more, if it's going to become the main road as opposed to the way that you've been going, that is the less helpful route.
And
so
also a question you may want to ask your psychiatrist, for those of us who take medications, you want to ask or look up what areas of the brain that specific medication impacts. And I had so the sodium pathways that facilitate memory and recall. I was taking Lamictal, and that actually thinned out that sodium pathway that facilitates memory. And so I had memory loss and terrible recall. My working memory was like bad, and it was because of that. And like Dana said, it could take sometimes years to reestablish those pathways, or you know, for you to strengthen those areas of the brain, or for those areas to naturally reestablish. So it's very important that when you're taking any type of substance, you want to know, especially if it's like for you know, neurological reasons, you want to be sure you know what's up, because you might feel like I did, like, oh my gosh, I have dementia, really. So yeah. And you do have to do exercises in order to get your brain back to the level you remember it being. So that's where therapy can come in for that as well. Yes. They just hit on a couple of different good points I wanted y'all to know about neuroplasticity, because it is really my jam.
be about some science in this practice.
Yeah, we love science. Try to make sure Mr. Carter wasn't tearing up my house. Okay. All right, cool. So you probably were going to talk about it. I'm not going to ask. I'm going to let you go to your next point.
Okay. So I understand that we wanted to talk about kind of the difference in, you know, the male and the female perspective, and then also with adults and children.
Nope.
So that was kind of where I was heading next, if everyone's ready to move on.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I was just like, I'm gonna let you move on, because I know that's where you was me and Dana had the same brain.
It's slightly autistic. So just quick questions. Julia asked, is the clumsiness associated with autism also present in ADHD? So ADHD and autism are very, very similar and very different at the same time. And so there is actually currently research being done on whether ADHD should be considered part of the spectrum. There's a big debate on that. Hot topic in research. Very interesting. But since they're both neurodevelopmental disorders, it's both kind of in the same vein, where it's a deficit in. So with ADHD, we actually know the what is it? The like method, like the reason for it, and that is that you have a lack of dopamine, and so you don't produce enough dopamine, which can cause an inability to basically like persist through tasks that aren't giving you the kind of dopamine that you need to regulate yourself. And so you may have a difficulty with all sorts of things. But it is also, in the same way as autism, like a deficit in a certain area of the brain, which can cause, you know, growths in other areas. And it's the same kind of deal. So All that to say, yes. Yeah, you can definitely have clumsiness with ADHD as well. It can also be a lack of ADHD comes with a lot of lack of interoception, which is like ability to know where your body is at all times, which is also why people like run into things, or maybe you're just like not paying attention because you're just on autopilot. So there's lots of reasons why that could be that's not associated with smaller cerebrums. And how does trauma affect any of the shortcomings? Trauma affects everything, and especially where you are in your developmental stage when you have trauma, what kind of trauma it is, how you internalize it, and what it says to you, what exactly the trauma is. Trauma is a whole other thing. There is usually a bunch of trauma associated with any neurodevelopmental disorder. So
Yep.
I can't even tell you just in a short answer how that would affect it.
I did do a trauma live and broke trauma down, but again, trauma is one of those things you got to kind of talk about recurring. So maybe y'all tell me in the comments, do y'all want narcissistic personality disorder next week, or do y'all want trauma? I mean, I could do a twofer. I could, because you really could swoop to do that, because the trauma caused the personality. But y'all tell me, do y'all really want trauma focus, or you really want narcissistic personality disorder? Put it in the comments, and then we'll follow up with trauma, because it's a whole thing.
Yeah, there's no short way to talk about trauma.
Not at all. It's a whole build. I think I did it over 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Built on it.
So, with kids, and so in any, hey, leave your brother alone. My poor new dog. She's like, we've had her for a year, but she loves my cat. And my cat really wants to love her, but she's just still so excitable. She just like pounced on him, like literally had him like pinned to the floor, just like giving him kisses. And she's like, I love you so much. And he's like, oh my God. So that's what that was. This is what sessions are like with Dana. Sign up immediately.
Get yours today.
But yes, so with kids, what you see a lot of is just the symptoms. And so you see these things all very laid out because the kids don't have a lot of experience dealing with all this. They're all still very new to it. It's all a lot for them to deal with. They may have meltdowns. You see a lot more of the symptoms in kids. And so specifically with boys, you see a lot more of the repetitive behaviors. You see a lot more of the stereotype behaviors, the lining things up, the flipping things, the sorting things into like different colors. Like you're like, play with your toys. What are you doing? And they're like, I am playing. I'm having a great time. And you're like, you're just lining up your dinosaurs by size. And they're like, yeah, isn't it great? And these kind of really, really focused interests. And so, you know, especially with like YouTube and stuff now, if your kid is coming up to you and is like, did you know that the Brachiosaurus lived from this time to this time and was this tall and this weighed this much? And they haven't like been on the computer like right before that to tell you, like just reading it off to you. Like you should probably look into that, because that's the kind of stuff you see is just kind of really deep dive into these interests, these hobbies. Like it's not just kind of like, I have a casual interest in a lot of things. As somebody as somebody diagnosed with ADHD, I had lots of interest in everything. I can tell you a little bit about Egypt and about mythology, about every kind of mythology, Norse mythology, Greek, Roman, everything. I can tell you a little bit about everything.
That's cool. I like that. I do like that. We'll have to talk.
Whereas, like with somebody with autism, especially a young man with autism, you will get just detailed, in-depth everything about their current hyperfocus, their current interest, their current niche topic. my partner, who I tease all the time that I think he might be autistic, has wood flashcards. He went to a store and got, literally, it's just like the thinnest little like scraps of wood. And like on one side, it's just the wood. And on the other side, it tells you like how it was cut and what type of wood it is. Like super niche, need to know everything. I need to devour this topic, become this topic, know everything there is to know about it. Once you're done learning about it, done. New topic.
I just want to see those.
Oh, they're pretty cool. But like that's the kind of in-depth kind of thing you get to it. And if it's not really about what they want to talk about, like they're just not going to talk. They're going to be like, cool.
Yeah, I have.
And they'll just let you talk. Like
when I worked more with kids on the spectrum, when I worked with, we call them differently able now, or not special needs anymore. But when they were done with their session, they just get up and walk off. And I knew what it was. They meant they were done with it. I tried as long as I could, and we did what we could. But when they was done, they'd just get up and walk off.
Kids also just feel like that in general.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, so you see less of that very specific kind of things with girls. Girls will definitely still have their special interests, but tends to be girls or, you know, people who are raised AFAB aren't going to be like, I don't care about this topic, and so I'm just not going to talk. Like,
AFAB is assigned female at birth, y'all.
Yes. So anyone who was born female, assigned female, kind of like raised in a female typical way. And so it could be a sex designation thing. It could be that like this is the way female brains are built. But it also could be a socialization thing. It could be the way that girls are raised. But part of the reason I found that girls tend to be less easily diagnosed is because of these things. Girls tend to be much better at reading social situations and trying to adapt to them. And so with boys with autism, you will see them very specifically playing by themselves. Like, they're not playing with dinosaurs. I want to play with dinosaurs. I'm going to play by myself. Whereas young girls will play near other girls. That you won't really be part of the group. You won't really be playing whatever game that they're playing, but I'm playing near them.
Like,
and so I look included. And so it's not going to set off as many red flags with teachers.
Yep.
Or they will attempt to like learn what it is that people are doing. And people are also kind of more vocal with young girls when they're acting in a way that they don't find to be proper or appropriate. Be like, oh, young ladies don't do that. We don't talk like that. Like, we need to smile when people are talking to us, honey. And so they may also just get more coaching at what they're supposed to be doing. And then they become more able to hide these things. We call it masking. Where you put on this facade and act the way people want you to and hide those autistic tendencies that will get you either like excluded or called rude or any of those things. So
AFAB people, don't be too alarmed, because in general, that's how like Dana just said, those are things that all assigned female at birth individuals have heard, like, ladies are to be seen and not heard, and oftentimes we don't want to get in trouble, so we just do it, so that also may contribute to it, like you said, and that may be exactly what you said, honestly. I restated it.
Yeah. And then especially it can be even harder, like, because that's something that you've learned to do as an adult. or as a child, as an adult, learning that that's not something you're doing naturally can be real weird. Like having to like break down, like, is this something that you are doing because it is natural to you? Or is this something that a skill that you have acquired and you are doing?
And
So
you'll know, because you'll know if something just feels like, there's a difference in it. Um, sometimes you can tell, like, this feels more robotic. I have clients that say that this feels kind of more robotic.
or I think of it kind of like customer service, whereas
I love
if
matching on the phone.
my customer service voice, we don't know her. People
Hi,
used to
how are you?
people used to tell me, they were like, Dana, why is your customer service voice from the Valley? I'm like, I don't know. We don't know her. Like I'd be in the middle of a conversation and then somebody would come through the drive-thru and I would have to pop up, hi, thanks for choosing. And people would be like, it's so disconcerting when you do that. Your voice goes up like a whole octave and a half. I'm like, I know, right? Isn't it weird? But yeah, it's kind of like in that customer service voice where you put it on, but it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel very natural. And at least in customer service real way, all of those interactions are very defined. You have certain things that you're expected to do. And if you're having to do that in your everyday life, I just imagine how exhausting it is to have to like constantly be thinking about everything you're doing all the time. But so with kids, especially, you'll see a lot of those behaviors kind of unmasked, unregulated. And then if they are having to mask, especially as they get a little bit older, you'll see them come home and either shut down or melt down. Where, they've had to be on at school all day. They've had to be thinking about stuff. And this is pretty normal for a lot of kids, even without neurodevelopmental disorders or other issues. They've had to like be still and like sit and be quiet and learn and kind of regulate themselves all day. And then they get home and it's hard. It's been hard and they're tired. But especially for kids with neurodevelopmental disorders, like getting home, either going to shut down, meltdown, especially if like one more thing goes not their way. Like you got to stop by the grocery store after school when that's not something you normally do. Freak out, panic, did not plan for this.
Yeah.
And so with adults, you tend to see much more of a pattern of coping skills. And good coping skills, bad coping skills, just coping skills, things that you have picked up that work for you. There's a couple of jokes in kind of the general community around testing. And it's one, like, give someone one of the autism tests and like see how long it takes them to ask for clarification. Because the tests are written by neurotypical people and some of them are really weird. There's one question I specifically remember and it was like, would you rather go to a party or to the library? And it's like, those are very different things. What's happening at the library? Do I need to get something? What kind of party? Who's going to be there? Like, what? These are not equal.
At what time?
Things. Like, yeah. What time is it? Like,
Sandra asked, where can you get tested?
So I do believe, and I may have to defer to Dominic.
Definitely Sparks Clinic, which takes forever for kids if you're in Alabama.
Yeah, everywhere that does autism testing in Alabama is basically like booked out really far. I had a client say that there was somebody in Huntsville that could get them in a couple months. But what I was going to say is that like you will have to go to a psychiatrist, psychologist, or psychometrist. Autism and ADHD, I don't believe, are things that counselors can diagnose you with.
I don't think we can't do the testing. but you can't get a diagnosis without the testing.
Right.
So yeah. So you would have to get a referral from your, they can do a diagnostic impression. We can do a diagnostic impression, but for you to have a formalized test, you would need to get a referral from your psychiatrist who prescribes your medicine, or your PCP. That's what most people have, but psychologists or psychometrists as well.
Mm-hmm.
They administer the test.
Yeah. And then, so the other thing that you see a lot with adults, and the one that is more applicable, is that you, yes, your pediatrician would be like your primary care physician for a child. So it'd be similar vein. Thank you.
But Sparks Clinic for kids, Sparks Clinic at UAB does it. But it's like a thick booklet that you got to fill out, send back, and then they'll call you in like a year type thing.
So the other thing that you see a lot of, and that is kind of joked about in the community, is going to be the, so you'll ask somebody like, oh, like, do you have issues with different kind of clothing? And they'll be like, no, I have a system. And so like, do socks bother you? And they're like, no, I have a system. For me, I've bought socks that don't bother me. I have found very specific brands of socks that don't like have seams or like doodle. Stop. Yeah, glare at me all you want, but don't eat that. Sorry.
I think Kenyatta was asking about stimming behavior. She said, what about clapping a minute ago?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll talk about that in just a second.
Okay. We're getting to that. Yeah.
But so with adults, you'll see more of these behaviors where, it is, I've come up with a way basically to accommodate myself. And I've noticed the things that tend to bother me, and I have found ways to work around them. And so for me, and one of the things that I was like, no, I have a system, was when I was getting my ADHD diagnosis, my doctor was like, do you tend to lose things? And I was like, no, because I have a very specific things that I have to do, or else I will lose them. Like I literally keep my keys on a lanyard, or on a carabiner, one of those like little hooks, so that I can literally just like hook it onto like my purse or my person or my backpack or whatever I'm carrying, so that I do not like put them down somewhere. I like compulsively check where my phone is. And like even in the car, like if my phone is not touching me, usually I put it like on my leg. I like think I've put it down somewhere and I've lost it. Even though my phone is playing music through my car, and I'm still like, oh God, it's lost.
That's how I know. I'm like, where's the music coming from? Where's it coming from? Oh, my phone, it's somewhere. Okay, it's under the seat.
Yeah, and then you're like, call my phone. Oh no, you can't do that. It's on silent because the ringer bothers me. But in adults, you tend to see these things where you're like, I have come up with ways to accommodate all of my issues. Like I still have these issues, but basically I, as an adult, have figured out ways to work around it. I don't like touching the stuff in the sink. The sink is gross. It feels weird. It's cold. It's mushy. I have dish gloves. Or I just don't do the dishes. I buy paper plates and throw them away. Like, these sensory issues. Lots of people wear headphones all the time now. And so my dog, she's just harassing both her brothers. But so, you see these more of these systems that they put in place to accommodate themselves, to work around their symptoms. So that is generally how you see with adults more. And there'll still be these kind of things. I pulled up a couple of things. And so signs of autism in adults that you might find is finding it hard to understand what others are thinking or feeling. And so when you're kind of like, why are they behaving this way? Like, you find it hard to put yourself in their shoes and kind of understand what's happening over there. Generally being anxious in social situations, having a difficulty making friends or knowing how to approach people, or in conversations, I've heard a lot of people say, like, I don't know when it's my turn to talk, or like I'll think I'm adding something to the conversation, but I'll say something and then everyone else just like stops talking, like I've said something really weird and I don't understand. Not understanding certain social rules, like how close you're or far you need to stand from people, or how much eye contact is appropriate. Yeah. And then very
Get
intense.
your friend, Punky Brewster. This was your friend topic. Get your friend.
Yeah, so like noticing small details, like certain visual things people are doing, or things. I had a client one time, the way they were holding their hands, their nails were making a real weird sound. And I was like, bud, like, you've got to stop that. You're setting my brain on fire. It was like the smallest sound, but I was like, I'm going to actually die. It was about to make me crazy. And like, I have to say stuff like that in a therapy setting. So I'm like, I'm not going to be able to focus on what you're saying unless you stop doing what you're doing. I'm so sorry.
Like scratching against like their like hand or something?
No, they like had their nails like interlocked.
Oh,
like this. And
yeah.
it was like,
Okay.
I don't know. It was very weird. Yeah, it made a noise and I was like, my brain's gonna explode. Please stop. Taking things literally. And so, you know, there are jokes about this one, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about kind of what taking things literally means.
They always use that raining cats and dogs example.
Yeah.
Like for cats and dogs.
Yeah, or like break a leg, or like you might not understand sarcasm, but like I'll randomly think of stuff. And I saw something on TikTok. I'm always seeing things on TikTok, but like,
oh yeah,
where
TikTok
somebody will be like, this is a thing that like I took more literally than I was supposed to. And I was like, oh, like it'll be things that you don't even know that you're taking literally. Like there was a really good joke that I saw, and it was like, you're autistic. Does that mean you take everything literally? And they were like, no, that's kleptomaniacs. Like,
that was a bad joke.
Oh yes, it was really good.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. We all love puns. But yeah, we're like, it's really funny how you think about things and you're like, oh, that's what that means. Or like when somebody tells you like we need to be there at 3 and you are there on the dot and they're there at like 3:05 and you're like, you said we were gonna be here at 3.
Right. Exactly at 3. Oh.
You said 3, not 3:05. Like, but yeah, so those are all things. And then one of my favorite websites, or one of my favorite like tools that I found, this speech and language therapist talks about communication diversity. Typically you'll see in autistic folks, and you'll see this with ADHD people as well, info dumping. And so when you get to talking about a topic that you actually really appreciate and like one of your like niche topics, just kind of going,
Malika, I'm so sorry to hear that. Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely let us know if we can do anything. Okay. All right. And remember, you do what you need to do when you need to do it. Nothing's wrong. All right. Just as long as you're not getting hurt or anything. All right. But yes, definitely we will. Y'all please keep Malika and her family in your prayers and thoughts and everything. Okay, guys? I'm glad we were here for you. All right. Definitely let us know if you need anything. All right.
Punky said, what about not getting jokes or not finding them funny? Yeah, that can be another way of like taking things literally too literally. Oh, it was like, the joke about the chicken crossing the road to get to the other side, to get run over by a car to get to the other side, not to the other side of the road. Like that would be like taking something too literally. A lot of people don't understand that joke. And
Wait, what?
the chicken getting run over.
I thought it was to get to the other side of the road.
No, the other side.
Oh,
at least that's how somebody explained it to me recently. Like,
got you. I'm like, okay.
yeah, I don't. Maybe that person was reading too far into the joke, and it was just supposed to be like to get to the other side. Duh, like.
Right, because that would be hard for many people. Because I'm like, there's a road involved.
Yeah,
there's no mention of a car.
No, that's just the way somebody explained that. I'm not sure about that at all. I think they were definitely overthinking that. But yes, lots of jokes where you have to kind of read into things just a little bit. Yeah, I think my initial impulse is to take them very like at face value, and then I have to sit and think about them for a minute and be like, because you're like, this is a joke. It's supposed to be funny. Like, where is it? I'll find it eventually. But yeah, so different communication styles that you'll see in adults and kids, that kind of info dumping, like I was telling you earlier with talking about something that you're interested in, and just like throwing a bunch of information, like wanting to talk about this for a long time in very good detail. Mm-hmm. Because, we tend to bond over shared interests. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm wanting to share my interest with you, it is a way of me to connect with you. Mm-hmm. She found a squeaky. And so there is that. Echolalia tends to be one that is pretty misunderstood. Echolalia is kind of a way of creating a shared language that we all share, or like kind of returning a gesture where someone is doing something for you. And so there was in a group that I was running on ADHD one time, somebody's dog popped up on the screen and I went, a puppy. And suddenly the whole chat went, a puppy. And I was like, thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you for that. Just immediately roasted by all the echolalia. I was like, there it is. Okay. But it's a way of kind of like connecting with someone. I am hearing you. I am listening. I am returning the sound. Kind of like when somebody is like, da, 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 and you like do the last part, da, da. It's kind of that like that little connection that you're having with somebody, or creating that shared language. That's actually this happens a lot with ADHD and autistic folks, when you accidentally mimic someone's accent, or you'll pick up on their mannerisms and things. It's a way of creating a shared language and creating your own dialect with your people. It's a form of like empathy and like social building. But echolalia, you'll find that kind of stuff a lot. Songs, media, I think we all do this a lot with like TikTok things, or Vines, if you're old like me still. Or somebody will be like, road work ahead, and you'll be like, I sure hope it does. Like, it's just these kind of like impulsive, like, I have to say this kind of things.
So what go ahead.
I'm almost done. There can be a tendency to prefer asynchronous communication, like texting, so that you have time to like think about things and do them, being very direct, often to the point of being considered rude or like non-tactful, because you don't know all these secret rules and things. Like I saw something one time talking about people who tend to ask and people versus people who tend to want to be offered first. And so like you might ask somebody like, hey, I'm going to be in your town for a while. Would it be okay if I stayed at your house? That's somebody who just wants to ask. That's going to be somebody who's a very direct communicator. Whereas some people would like be like, oh, you've just like inconvenienced me so much by asking me that. Like you're supposed to put down hints and I'm supposed to pick them up and then offer to let you stay at my house. All that. Anyway, my son talks about Garfield all the time. He sounds like Garfield.
That's probably super cute.
Oh my goodness. Really? Oh. Ooh. We're almost done.
I'm glad you know what you're talking about in therapy. Happy to help give you some ideas.
So that's what I've prepped. So I said that's what I have prepped. So go ahead. I could talk forever.
No, I was just going to ask you one last thing about how can parents that are dealing with children with autism, or shoot, maybe even parents that are on the spectrum who have children. What are some coping skills or things to be aware of that they may want to talk to their therapist about?
That's a great question. My personal opinion, and not the opinion of Yellowbird and its subsidiary series, thinking about the child and their own distress. If you are not on the spectrum and your child is, thinking about, your child and their distress over kind of how much their autism causes you distress can be really, really important. A lot of the things that we see from Autism Speaks or things like ABA therapy, at least in my opinion, from what I understand and know about it, is meant to teach children and young people to suppress that autism, the autism symptoms, and conform more to what we need and expect as parents, as employers, teachers, everybody else, as opposed to what the child needs and how they still have a need to express themselves and work on their own things. And that can internalize that they are incorrect for doing things their own way and they are not good enough. And so that is something to watch out for, and to be able to be, as a parent, as patient and understanding as you can. Parenting is always hard, and parenting a special needs child especially. I'm not sure what the appropriate.
Yeah. Also, you may need to seek your own therapy about it, just so someone can walk you along the journey. You might seek a therapist who works with folks that are neurodivergent or on the spectrum, even if you're not, so that they can help you understand what's going on with your child.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I'm not sure what the appropriate linguistic kind of terminology would be in special needs kind of children. So I apologize if I'm not using any of it correctly.
I've heard differently abled, but I mean, that doesn't really seem much better than special needs.
Yeah. As a parent with autism who may or may not also have autistic children, I have seen people talk about how their I saw specifically one person talking about how they were sensory avoidant and they had a child that was sensory seeking, and how that can cause a lot of issues in their household when they're going around turning off all the lights and then their kid comes through and just like, rah! Kind of, um, as someone who's not a parent who doesn't deal with these things a lot, it is hard to say what it is going to be. But, just remembering, for me as a child therapist, just kind of always remembering that your child is a person as well, and kind of as much as you can, being able to respect them and have boundaries and accommodations with them in the same way that you would with another adult living in your house. And
May even
coming
try
up with
family therapy as well.
Yeah, coming up together with solutions that you guys can work out together. But yeah, a lot of these things, kind of taking this from my experience and working with trans people, whatever feelings you have about having a child with special needs, with autism, with ADHD, with any of these other things, having a space to work on that away from your child so that you're not expressing possibly negative feelings towards your child for not being maybe what you expected, in order to protect them, because it's very valid for you to have whatever feelings that you're feeling, and that maybe this wasn't what you were expecting, and maybe it's a lot harder than you were expecting, but taking that somewhere and talking to someone about it instead of having those feelings at or around your child in order to protect them from feeling like they are a problem or they are not good enough or that you don't love them the way that you do.
Yep.
So that.
Yes. And then because y'all asked, y'all want to come with these good questions at the end, these bangers. The first one is about at what age are most children diagnosed with autism? I know the age they can be diagnosed, but what age are most children diagnosed is a good question. I would probably need to look that up. Let me see.
Yeah, I think I would probably need to Google that as well. Like, I don't know typically what is the most typical age, but I know that it can also depend on probably what that, where they are on that needs level, right? And so if somebody is significantly higher needs, if they're having significantly more symptoms, it's much more likely for them to be diagnosed early.
Mm-hmm.
It also is more likely for them to be diagnosed early if they're having, if they have a family history. And so, if you have somebody else in your family that is autistic, it's very highly genetic. You're also more likely to have it in someone else in your immediate family. And so there are lots of things that can affect the age at which you're diagnosed.
The age that the earliest age you can diagnose it, and the age that most people are diagnosed at the same age. So 3 or 4 for 3 for boys, 4 for girls. That's really, I'm like, serious? Because I was thinking 12 would be close.
I was thinking 8. Yeah.
I was like, probably 12. Yeah, 8 would be another good guess, but I'm like, the age it could possibly onset and the age that most people are. That's what. Hey, let me look at Google Scholar, because I ain't even gonna front. I got that off of regular Google. Let me go to Google Scholar. So,
well, it also, you do
ahead.
see that it tends to, you hear a lot of people talk about, their baby was normally developing, and then around whatever age that you get that vaccine that everyone thinks causes autism.
The Rubella.
What is
it? The meningitis.
And like something.
The meningitis one, I believe, is what they think.
But I think that's around a year and a half is when you can start to see a lot of changes, especially in kids that MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. That's what it is.
Yeah. So we were kind of close.
Which I think is about a year and a half, so around 18 months. You can tend to start seeing changes where your child will start becoming less responsive, less verbal, these kind of things, which is why everyone started like blaming it on the MMR vaccine. But sometimes that doesn't happen. It's just with some kids. And so thank you, Punky. I was like, MMA, but no, that's mixed martial arts.
I was like, rubella, that sound right. Meningitis. Yeah, so thanks. How important is it to get diagnosed as an adult? How does it change the therapeutic approach? It may change your understanding, of and maybe allow you to give yourself more realistic expectations for yourself. If you are having some of the aforementioned symptoms, knowing that, hey, it may take a little time, it may take a lot of practice, but with this time and practice, these are the changes that I can expect to see for my age. With autism, it is important to take your age into account. So it could do a few things.
But neuroplasticity does change as you get older, and so that is something to consider, that kind of brain age, all of that. For me personally, I would say, at least for me, and I can't promise for every therapist, any therapist other than just me, I don't think it would change a lot about the approach, because I tend to work towards the patient and what you think is going to work for you and what you think your problems are. And so, if you say that you think you have autism and you have these issues, and even if you don't think you have autism, if autism treatments are going to work, if ADHD treatments are going to work, if DBT is going to work for you, I don't care if you don't have BPD, if you don't have the kind of things that these were made for. If you think it's going to work for you, that's what I'm going to do for you.
Yep.
But it does give you the ability to apply for a lot of things. If you need assistance in your work, if you need accommodations, if you do these things, there are also a couple of ways that it can be used against you. Where sometimes people will use a mental health diagnosis against you in court. I've seen people get their children given custody to the other parent because they have an autism diagnosis, and so there's lots of things to consider.
Rosa, just text the word new to the number right here in the banner. Just text the word new, and probably Dana actually or Lindsay will get with you tomorrow.
I'll be on tomorrow to talk to folks.
Yeah. So we take Blue Cross Blue Shield. All of our independent licensed therapists take it. So just text the word new. You can text it tonight. If it doesn't, now if that auto message does not generate, you should get an automated message back. If you don't get it, text the word new again tomorrow, because sometime it be acting up after a certain time of the day. I've had people, I'll be out at night and I'll be like, text the word new, and nothing happens, because it's like after that time where the
AI goes to sleep.
Yeah, it's like it's like during a quiet hour. So if you text it tonight and nothing happens, not to worry. Text it again tomorrow and it should work. But take a screenshot at least of this so you can see. But if you text the word new, we can get you set up.
How likely is it that parent and child have the same or similar diagnosis? So any kind of developmental disorder, because it's just the way your brain is going to develop, is very genetic. There's always, going to be those environmental kind of differences and things. And so it could be that they get different genes from you, or they get different genes from their other parent, or these other things. And so, it's all just a Punnett square. If you know what that is from genetics, it's all a certain percentage. If I don't know off the top of my head what the percentage is and what gene it is that's passed on. I'm not sure anybody really knows just yet what gene it is that's passed on. And so I'm sure you could Google and find what is the percentage of parent to child.
I'm assuming between 25 and 50%. I'm just assuming that.
Yeah, I would between 20, 50, somewhere in there. But But yeah, like if you have a definite diagnosis of autism, looking at your parents and then potentially your children and kind of seeing, like I loved when I was an undergrad, my child psychology teacher. And she was saying she worked a lot with autism. And she said, I can, like, generally, I don't look at my autistic clients and they have parents who are like social butterflies, just like the most like outgoing and like wonderful people. Like, not saying that they're not wonderful, but they're not like the most outgoing social butterflies you've ever met. You kind of look at the parents and you go, yeah, I could see that. And there's lots of jokes on TikTok about people being like, no, we have no idea where your autism came from. Your dad's just got every car manual he's ever come across, and he has a special chair that nobody can sit in. And we are only allowed to have meatloaf on Wednesdays. So if one parent has a diagnosis, should we have our kids tested? If you see a need, or if you want to, like we were saying, autism diagnosis services are very kind of backed up right now. We have really good services here in Alabama. The percentages and the ability and the amount of places that you have for testing are really exceptional, and it is still very hard to get in.
Yes.
And so if you see something that you're concerned about, definitely talking to at least the pediatrician about it and seeing kind of if somebody else sees what you do. If they are having any of these symptoms, if they're having issues in school, issues making friends, difficulty with regulation, it would definitely be good to at least talk to somebody.
You'll see those things pretty early on, like pre-K age. And so if you start seeing stuff like 3, 4, go on ahead, and because maybe you can get the testing done before kindergarten. So, yeah.
I'll have to look at Fragile X syndrome because that's not something I'm super familiar with. I know that with ADHD, it has a very high correlation with, what was it? It was narcissistic personality, like narcissistic abuse, basically being abused by someone with who is a narcissist can tend to make a person look like they have ADHD. I think it was. So, I mean, there's all kinds of, like we were talking about, nature versus nurture, genetics versus trauma, and all of these things that like have just a crazy correlation. And like you were saying, you said ADHD and autism, there's currently debate and there's currently research about whether or not ADHD is part of the spectrum. And so, it could be that those things are really related. So if your mom has ADHD, your kid has the markers for ADHD. I thought I said your mom had ADHD. I was like, yeah, I mean, it tracks. But yeah, I mean, it would tend to be that with any, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, go ahead. I was looking at, because BPD like borderline or BPD like bipolar.
Yeah, that's a good distinction to make because those are,
they need to change
certainly answers.
Which one? Yeah.
Me. But
borderline.
From my perspective, at least, any kind of accommodations you would be able to get for autism, you would also be able to get for ADHD with ADHD. And so if an ADHD diagnosis is sufficient, if they already have that diagnosis, maybe just kind of an understanding that may evolve in what it looks like, and it may have some autistic tendencies. That's how I kind of tended to find myself, as ADHD with autistic tendencies. But I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life. If you feel the need to get your kid tested, then definitely have at it. But that is my 2 cents.
So, as I suspected, Nikki, the old way, in the olden day, we used to have 5 axes. We had the axis 1 and axis 2. The axis 1 were more of your, what they used to call in the way olden days, neurotic, like disorders, depression, things of that nature, and their access to would be your personality disorders and autism. So in that way, they are similar. However, this says, which it's a .com, so it's just the quickest thing I looked up. BPD and autism also co-occur at high rates, and an autistic person is more vulnerable to developing BPD. So, but I still would look that up. But I'm actually seeing more.
I would not have guessed that.
I would have guessed it just because they would both be old and day access too. But actually, it looks like there's some more evidence that supports that. So apparently, they're pretty highly co-occurring. So that was a good question.
Yeah, thank you. I learned something from my own talk.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna look more into that. See there, now you got us doing more research, because again, I need to see it.
That and Fragile X.
Right. I need to see it on Google Scholar, and it can't be more than 10 years old, or PubMed or Mayo Clinic or somewhere reputable. But as far as I saw, they actually do have a high correlation. So,
well, now we don't know about bipolar too.
Of course, now you want to know about bipolar. I'm not doing that with y'all. I am not doing that with y'all. Y'all go on Google Scholar, because I know y'all are nerds in these comments. Get on Google Scholar. And if you have any specific clinical questions for us, bring them back to us or ask them in the comments. But thank you so much, Dana. This was super informative. I'm sure it helped out a lot of people. And y'all, please share this live, because Dana did share a lot of really good information that people may need, who are dealing with autism spectrum symptoms themselves, or in their kids, or as adults. So please be sure you share this. Any last words for us, Dana? We kept you in overtime.
It really weirds me out being not like mirror image to like the way the screen flips it.
I know, because you're like
I'm like doing stuff and it's on the wrong side, and I'm like, oh.
I always do that. I'm like
I always get so excited about coming on here, and I always get so nervous talking, and so I always get on here and I tell Dominique all the time how much I love talking to our people, how our people are so sweet. Like, I'll be calling folks for the admin stuff that I do, and people are so sweet all the time, and I'm like, I love our folks. And so I always love getting on here, and like, even as nervous as I am, y'all make me feel so good. So yeah, I appreciate it. I always have so much fun. And yes, I can't take insurance yet. It's dumb, I know. But if you want to come see me, I will be here at Yellowbird for private pay, and I need new clients. So hey,
yeah, the private pay rate is super cheap. So get on in before they get filled up, because we do have partnerships with like Department of Mental Health and some other agencies. So definitely, please, if you want to get in with Dana, you're going to need to do that so you can actually get in.
Act now. Supplies are running out.
Right. Act now. Text the word new to the below. Well, thank you so much, Dana. It was a pleasure, and I know we'll have you back soon.
I will love that. I will look forward to it.
Awesome. All righty.
Bye.
All right, there you have it. Y'all didn't tell me. Y'all need to for next week, let me know what you want. I was thinking narcissistic personality disorder, but y'all was acting like y'all wanted trauma. So let me know. And if you're watching this on the replay, you can still put it in the comments what you want. And then I may send out something to the community asking y'all again. I could do either, honestly. Trauma, I will say that trauma, I really don't want to do a crash course of it. It takes some weeks, but I can do a crash course. I can make it crash courseable, but I know you're probably going to have more questions, but I can do that if y'all want it. Or I can do narcissistic personality disorder. So let me know. But thank y'all for coming. I want y'all to stay warm, and I'll see y'all next week.